Hi, welcome back to the Always Right podcast. I'm author Karisa DeLay.
And I'm behaving today, author Jaime Vendera, because I got a friend on here, happened to be my friend, thankfully, an amazing author, Jay Willis. So I've known this guy for 30, 40 years. It's been a long time.
We're getting
So
old.
I want to be, don't say that. Don't judge me.
It's
It's
just the
between you and me.
truth.
Oh my
It
Yeah.
gosh.
is, dude. I hate it. I wanted to be a rock star. Now, when I tour with him, I'm like, just send me home. I can't handle this.
Oh my gosh. Jay, would you like to tell us about yourself and who you are to those listening?
Sure. My name's Jay S Willis. I'm a fantasy author from Southern Ohio. Like Jamie said, we've known each other since high school. We grew up together in school and played music together in band. And who knew we'd both turn out to be authors?
Must be something in the water. There are a lot of
Yeah,
great authors around here.
it could be.
Yeah, plus you got like all kinds of things to pull from when you're in Southern Ohio. You got like the Mothman, you got like all these strange, things in the woods, haunted houses, haunted Ohio. There's all kinds of things you can
Oh,
pull
yeah.
from. Not to
Oh,
mention all
yeah.
these serial killers that come from Ohio and all the
Those
presidents.
crazy people from Jackson.
Yeah.
I'm not even from Jackson though originally. I'm originally from Columbus, so
Well, but
oh
yeah, but you were
H.
pulled down there by my
Yeah.
my favorite husband out there. So
Hmm. Nice. He's listening.
Jay, I gotta know, dude, because I started writing in 2000. When and why? I mean, what sent you down this path to become an author?
I've been telling stories since I was a little kid. I mean, my it goes back to my mom would put together these typing paper packets that she would staple together, and I would actually write out stories and make weird drawings of army men and battles and planes and all that stuff. So I mean, it goes all the way back into elementary school, man. I mean, but then I started playing Dungeons and Dragons in high school and started reading a lot and my introduction wasn't to fantasy wasn't the normal Tolkien. I didn't go that route. I started out with Dragonlance and
Hmm.
Dungeons and Dragons, and that's the branch I took into fantasy. So
I kind of remember that because I'm drawing a blank here, but Mrs. Green's daughter, who was in, she's a couple years ahead of us.
yeah,
She was into Terry Brooks' Shannara. And I
yep.
remember I kind of got, she had the wish song of Shannara, which I'd already read Elfstones. I was like, wow, he's got more books. So she really pushed me down that. And I do remember you guys talking about Dungeons and Dragons. Like, man, I like to get into that because David Gibson and
Yep.
everybody else was into it. And I was like, oh, that's got to be so cool. So here you are. You're all grown up, married, have wonderful kids, and know your wife. She's great. And then some point you had to say, I want to write a book.
Yes. What
How
and
did
when
that
did
come
that
about?
transpire? What brought you to actually writing your first book?
The first time I actually tried it, my mom actually got me a typewriter for Christmas. I think it was like our between our junior and senior years in high school, and I just started typing away on an actual to God typewriter. Didn't get very far, but I started back then. That went away a long time ago. But um, I wrote through college. I wrote through law school. I've got a couple of different trunk novels that will never see the light of day that and will never be finished. But I got serious about it probably back in 2013, 2014, 15 then, and I did a National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, and I actually where you have to write 50,000 words in a month,
Mhm. Yeah, we've
and I
talked about
actually
that
did
before.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so that was a good experience teaching me to get in the habit of writing every day, and I actually after that I ended up finishing that book, which again that one will never see the light of day because it's awful, but that was my first real venture into trying to do that. But the funny thing is that was I had stories that I wanted to tell other than that were inspired before that. That's where the first book in my Dream Saga Sphere, my Dream of the Sphere book, which is the first book in my Sphere Saga series, came from. Was back in 2005, 2006. I found this piece of digital art online. There was this big golden sphere in the middle of a weird city, and it drove me nuts because it's like, what is in that thing? Why is that sphere there in the middle of a city? I got to know, so I got to write that story. So and eventually I finally broke down and I wrote the story, and that's how that saga came to be.
Yeah, it's like I told you. I bought. I know. I want to. When we start, when's the fifth book coming out? Like April.
My book,
You got 5 books in in that series.
yeah,
Because
it
I.
came out in December actually.
Yeah,
Oh, it did.
it's
Okay.
yeah,
Because
last
we were
Yeah,
talking about
December.
this, I said I gotta wait for a minute. Yeah.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
so I got them all, but I'm like I was like I gotta read. So that's what it must have been. I bought it and it wasn't out yet, and I was thinking it was March or April.
yep,
But I have to have every book in the series before I start it, or I'll like. Ugh.
yeah. A lot of people do that.
Yep.
Don't want to be some authors
Which is a lot of pressure
who
on
don't
an
finish.
author.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, what'd you
Yeah.
say?
don't want to be like some authors who never finish their series who shall remain nameless.
Yeah, we will not say his name
Wow.
because I hated the last season of that anyway.
Sheesh. We've only been in here 5 minutes and he's already calling you out, Jamie.
Oh no, he wasn't talking about me.
Oh
Oh,
no, no, not
No,
at all.
I mean I fall into that, but
a lot
you know,
because he has like 12 that are
I'm not going to
unfinished
say George
series.
R. R. Martin, but maybe.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Okay, well, you can't talk about that person unless you're talking about Jamie. Jamie has more, I think,
Oh my
he probably has the
gosh, I
Guinness
got to
Book
hear
of
this
World.
forever. I haven't finished my Age of the Sigil book, the fourth
Uh,
one in the series. I'm like, I'll do it.
Okay,
I will
Age
do
of
it.
the Sigil. What else haven't you finished?
Oh, I don't know. There's like 11, Jay. There's like 11 books I have to finish because I'm like, I don't know, like
In one
because you wrote
series.
the Arcana Chronicles, so you have like your brain's got to go in different directions. I have
yeah.
to. I got to jump to horror and then the spy novel and then the YA fantasy. I have to be all over the place, and then I get lazy and I haven't
And
finished
then who's
anything.
and yes, and
Hey,
see
I
here's
got
the
an
thing.
excuse. No
You're
excuse.
calling all these people out, but
Yeah, I
Jamie,
don't really have excuse.
take up the mirror. All right.
Okay, I'm going to
So
complete it before you complete Canvas.
bet.
No, I don't really want to bet. I just wanted I wanted to call you out.
I completed my series. I'm starting a whole new book that doesn't require a series.
I've completed some series, you
But you
know.
have some unfinished series.
I
Poor Jay,
know.
listen to this. He's like playing
Yeah,
like
I'm
a
like, dude, I
That's
came
all
you
right.
came on to talk about me, not you guys. So let's talk about the Sphere Saga. I mean, I want to know like the
Sure,
breakdown for everyone because I love fantasy.
sure, sure. Um, the elevator pitch for it is it's about three wizard war criminals that cause a magical apocalypse that almost destroys their world, and then the epic revolution that happens as the world's rebuilding 3,000 years later. So that's how you find out what's in the sphere. Which if you probably see it behind me, but the sphere is actually featured heavily on the cover.
Oh,
But
that's cool.
nice.
that's the first book's cover.
You know what I love about what he just said, Carissa?
What?
We have this question like, hey, if you had to sell your series in like
Mhm.
30 seconds or less, what would you say? That was the perfect answer.
Your book in like 30 seconds or less as you're riding up on an elevator.
We're in sync. Yeah, hardly nobody can do that. Like, well, this puppy in my book, and I'm like, come on, if you want to sell it to me, it's TikTok world. You got to
We're
get it
gonna
to me in 30
I
seconds.
think we're gonna have to do an episode now called Elevator Pitching Your Book.
Yeah, so you might be back on if you're cool with that.
Sure,
I would
sure. Be
love
happy to.
that.
I'm not very good
Yes.
at it, but yeah, I'd love to.
That you're good at. That was amazing. I'm not being disrespectful because we've done this to a lot of authors like off camera, but it's just like on the spot, like sell me your book, and you
Yeah,
just did. So
Mhm.
right, right.
Well, I think the recent episodes of authors that we did a great job. So I'm not gonna
yeah,
say
yeah, 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 yeah.
the most recent yeah, I'd say they did great. So what are some of your writing influences? Who are some of the authors that you take influence from or find to be your kind of your go-to writer when you're like, oh, kind of write like this?
Um, I kind of in chronological order, probably goes all the way back to David Eddings and Raymond E. Feist. Their fantasy series were really influential on me. Orson Scott Card, he writes a little bit different fantasy. He wrote Ender's Game, if you're
Yep.
familiar with Ender's Game. But Orson Scott Card, he wrote. I can't think of the name of the book. I've got it on my shelf over here somewhere. I have to find it. But he wrote a writing book that I read a long time ago that was really helpful
Yep, I
about
read it too.
character, plot line, story, and that kind of thing. Um, Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. I'm a Star Wars kid. I grew up with Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, George Lucas's storytelling, and the
Mhm.
whole Star Wars series. Was really influential on the way I tell stories. Modern Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time. That's my favorite series of all time. Brandon Sanderson finished that series out when Robert Jordan died. That's how I got to know with Brandon Sanderson's writing, and he's probably my famous, most influential writer on me right now. Would be Brandon Sanderson. Actual teachers, writing teachers, Dave Farland, who passed away unfortunately a couple of years ago. I hooked up with him back in about 2015. I joined. He had what was called the Apex Writers Group, and he would teach you different writing techniques. You would actually meet up with him online, talk to him online through email, that kind of thing. Took some classes from him. Actually met him in person. Went to the Writer Symposium at Gen Con in 2015 and spent a week with him, taking classes with him, talking to him. He actually, when I started seriously writing Dream of the Sphere, he helped with that some. I was putting it together. He had looked through some of it, gave me a lot of critiques, and the really cool story that I like to tell about that book is Dave kind of helped me realize I bit off more than I could chew when I started writing that book. I had it outlined. I knew where the story was going. I knew what I wanted to do with it, but I started writing it, and I got a long ways into it, and I realized I don't have this writing skills. I don't have the chops to do this yet. So at that symposium at Gen Con in 2015, I figured out I've got to put that book aside. It about killed me to do it, and it was the most humbling thing a writer can ever experience. But I realized I got to put this book aside. I got to write something else. And Jaime mentioned the Arcana Chronicles, and that's where this book came to be. Blood is Thicker Than Magic. I came up with the idea for that book at that symposium when I finally realized I got to put this dream book aside, literally my dream book of writing, and that's where the Arcana Chronicles started. I got to put it aside, and I went from an epic fantasy, multiple point of view book with hundreds of characters to basically a one point of view first person narrative writing in a young adult urban fantasy setting, which is kind of like Harry Potter, along those lines. And it's about a teen boy who's part of an ancient prophecy he knew nothing about. He discovers he's got magic powers he knew nothing about. He can infuse everyday items with magic. He turns a flashlight into a lightsaber. That's how he discovers his powers. And then he finds out that his grandfathers hated each other most of their lives and were bitter enemies, but he never knew anything about all this stuff. So he's got to figure out what's going on. Where do these powers come from? Why do my grandfathers
It's
have a family feud
like a
going on?
personal journey of finding not only himself, but
Yeah.
the old part of himself that he doesn't know, and this new part of himself that he doesn't know.
Yep. Exactly.
And but even with writing that, even though you didn't have to do all this plot development, across chapters, that had to help like zone you in for when you came back to Sphere.
Yeah.
Probably for
Yeah.
writing skill purposes, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It helped me build my skills.
Mhm.
And then when I finally came back to it, the only good thing that came out of COVID was in 2020. I had started the first three books of the Sphere Saga in 2020. I had Blood is Thicker Than Magic pretty much done. So I went back to the Sphere Saga, and as 2020, I wrote all three of those simultaneously and back to
Wow.
back because they're interwoven.
Mhm.
And then I put all three of them out and rapid release them in 2021.
Wow.
That is crazy. I mean, I'm
And they're
super
not
ADHD, but I
small.
don't think I can write three books at once. I mean, yeah. How did you keep track? Because it's like,
He's a lawyer,
sequential.
Amy. He's a lawyer. It's not like he takes
Oh,
Oh,
one
it,
yes.
you take
it
one
if
piece
you
I
at a
had
time.
my secretary dictate.
no, I can't dictate to save my life, but one of these days maybe I'll show you. Well, I've never shown anybody else, but I've got this highly color coded spreadsheet in Excel of each point of view's character, which chapter they're in, how much screen time they've got, what
Oh,
plot
that would be cool.
lines
When
going
are we
to
doing lunch? Because no, it's hard for me. Like even with Sigil, I'm like, I got to go back and take care and develop the characters and know what's in book one and book
right.
two and how they've evolved. So
You,
yeah, that's
I bet you,
intense.
have you ever used AI to help organize your writing?
No,
Yeah.
no, no.
Yeah, well, dude, it's not. A lot of
Well,
people are
yeah,
like,
it's not
nah,
right for
not
you.
for writing, but like to help you, like keep
Organize
it
your
on
space
point.
and keep it on point.
No, I've used programs like there's a program. It's not artificial intelligence, but AutoCrit. I use that.
Yep.
It's like an editing
software.
I wouldn't even
Yeah.
call it a program. You will log into their website and you can put it in and compare. Like I use Brandon Sanderson as the author that it compares my work to.
Hmm.
Now, if they've got AI in the background there, they may have that. I don't know. I don't
Probably.
want to know it. It doesn't rewrite anything for you. It just
Yeah.
gives
Right.
you suggestions on grammar and
Hmm.
tropes and themes.
That is
All,
AI.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
kind of,
like
sort of.
pseudo right. Grammarly has some of that, but the cool thing, because everyone's so against it, and I can understand, but it's like if you had a friend to soundboard off of, and they're
Yeah,
like, ah, and that's what it'll do, make a suggestion. So yeah,
yeah,
that's great, just to
You know,
help
yeah,
you
I was just
organize everything.
thinking about like when you have, so we have a fantasy writer that we are getting ready to take on into the publishing company. And I turned her and Jamie onto pseudo write. But it's nice because when you're world building, you can put all your world building stuff in there. You put all of your characters, whether they're the protagonist, if they're a tertiary character, you can describe them, everything that you have about them, you type it in there.
yeah. That's
Um,
pretty cool.
yeah,
World
I
Anvil
don't.
does
We don't have to
something
do that,
similar.
Karissa.
Yeah,
Like
I know you
I
don't
put my
have to,
book in there, and it breaks down the
but
characters
Jamie,
for
that's
you.
because the book is already written. But if you're just writing the book,
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
okay, walk with
yeah,
me here.
yeah.
Stay with me.
I've
So
looked at
when you're building
World
that,
Anvil's. Yeah, World Anvil's similar. I looked at it and I looked at it too late. I wish I'd had it when I was writing the series. And I thought about, because I looked at it and I started playing around with it, but it's like it's too much to go back and rebuild it
yeah,
in here. So
yeah. Well,
maybe some
yeah.
other
Now,
time.
so like when you've done so there's the comparison between where you've already done a book and you are starting a new book. So like if you've already done a book, you can import it. They have that
Right.
import version where it will, you can do all those little.
just gives you your bullet points and everything.
Yeah, it gives you your
Yeah.
bullet. Here's my first book. Here's the second book. Now I'm going to write the third one. Please take all the stuff that's from this one and make sure I'm staying on point for this third one.
That's intriguing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But we actually talked to the one of the engineers. She was on an episode, and it's not something that it can't do it for you.
Yeah,
Right.
It,
Right.
it's a system that helps you and aids you, but it's like it still takes something for you to have to do a lot of the work. But it
Right.
yeah.
helps you so your work isn't as hard. And
Yeah,
it's
and I
nice.
think a lot of people are thinking, "Oh, I'll get that or AutoCrit or whatever. It's going to write it for me." No, you got
No.
to put in the
No.
time. You got to build the world, yourself. So,
Mhm. Yeah. But so okay, moving on. Let's talk about your writing journey to from your writing journey to now. What it took to get published for you. What did you go for the publishing route? Did you self publish? In like, did you go a hybrid? Did you go traditional? What? Tell us about that.
I tried like the devil to find an agent. I once I got to 100+ queries, I quit counting. Then I got turned down. I said, "The hell with it. I'm done.
yep.
I'm gonna self publish." And I taught myself everything I could learn about self publishing and went that route. So all my stuff is self published. I do it all on Amazon. It's all on Kindle Unlimited, and I've got an editor that I work with. I actually on the Sphere book and on Blood is Thicker Than Magic, I worked with a developmental editor. But then I've got an editor who does just basically just proofreading, copy line editing, that kind
Copy
of thing.
editing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do it. I do all the self publishing myself. I do
I
all the
love
book
that
formatting myself.
you said an editor, because so many we've talked about it so many times before.
Mhm.
They will do a book, slap it on Kindle, and like, all right, here comes the money. Editing, so important.
Yeah,
You
Mhm.
can't be married to. You got to trust your editor. And I don't know if it's happened with you, but I've gotten mad at my editor. I thought he took out too many words. He's changed this, but then I became so unmarried to it. It's like, okay, I'm ready for give and take. Ah, that makes so much more sense. Thankfully, I've done
right,
that.
right, right. Yeah, it's an important part of the process. It's a necessary step, I think, because you can't. And even your editor, I've had readers send me things that here's a typo here, here's a typo here.
Oh
I
my
didn't catch it.
gosh.
It's
My editor
human.
didn't. I didn't catch it. My editor didn't catch it. I didn't catch it when I went through it again after my editor. So
You know
it's
what
going
made
to
me feel
happen.
better? Because like me, I work in the service industry, so I had a lot of clients in the salon, and I had a lady come in, and she was laying back getting her hair washed, and she said, "Oh, I brought my book, and I have everything marked, and it has all the corrections if you'd like that." And I was like, I don't want that."
Yeah,
She's like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
thought." I'm like, "What am I going to go do? Republish it?"
yeah.
Right. Right.
But what made me feel better, because that would get to me, that would really get under my skin. When people, like, I didn't have a ton of people do that. I had a few people say, "Oh yeah, there was a few like page." I'm like, I don't care. Like, stop it. But when I was reading one of Dan Brown's books, and I know he has like several edits before it even comes
Oh
to
yeah.
the table to be put on the shelf. I found a few typos, and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
"Thank you."
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Traditionally published authors books, you'll find the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're human. I mean, it just
Mm-hmm.
is.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
it's a personal thing when someone decides to
yeah,
come to the author. It's just like,
and I see it in every author I love. I see a typo. Now, Jay, I love that you said, "Hey, I put out these queries and I decided to self-publish." So, for a new author, if that's the route they're going to go, do you have any suggestions, any advice for them, like with how to learn formatting or finding an editor? I mean, what would you offer? I walked up to you like, "Hey, I want to write a book too. What can you give me?"
It's been a while since I've gone that route, so I'm not sure if things have changed since I was doing it. There are a lot of resources online that you can find advice on how to format your query letter and like developing we talked about the elevator pitch and that kind of thing. They expect that kind of thing in these query letters that you send out to agents. That's that's how I developed mine over time, and I just honed it. But apparently, they didn't like my pitch because nobody was interested in it. But fantasy is also hard to break into because there's
Yeah.
just so much of it.
oh
So,
yeah,
but these days, I'm glad I went self-publishing because a lot of traditionally published authors are now pretty much turning into hybrids. Because I mean, even Brandon Sanderson, he's self-publishing some of his own stuff. I mean, he ran Kickstarter and he ran, you know,
It's
it,
really the only way you can make money. I mean, it's like with the music industry, the percentage that you get of your own intellectual property with some of the
right,
bigger publishers is so like 8 to 10% or something ridiculously low. So, if you believe in your work and I mean the quality of your book covers and your writing is up there, and it's not just, hey, I'm another Kindle author kicking something out there. That does make the difference. So that's the route I went eventually, in the beginning after I gave up on the same thing. So,
what about your covers? Did you have an
yeah, they're
artist for
great.
your covers, or did you have those? How did that go about? How'd you go about
Yeah,
that?
I've got a cut. My cover artist is in the Philippines. I found him online. There are a couple of Facebook groups, writers groups that I'm in that different people recommended him, and I checked him out, and I love his work, and I contacted him, and I've never spoken to him in person. We've only talked through Facebook Messenger, but he is phenomenal. He's fantastic to work with. Somehow he's a wizard. I mean, I will send him my ideas for what I would like on the cover and what the book's about briefly, and he somehow makes the vision come to life. I mean, I don't understand how he does it, but he is fantastic to work with, and it's an addiction for me. I really want to have him do covers for me.
You
But
should just
it's
have. So you should. You know what you should do. Um, I'm gonna put this is gonna be a two-part question. First part, do you have some events coming up?
yeah, oh yeah,
Okay. So when you go to your events and you do your book signings and stuff, have scene art. Have art from your scenes. It doesn't have to be a book cover.
right, right,
Something I used to do with my first book was I would paint the scenes because I'm an artist. So I would paint the scenes, and my friend and I would go do these events, and we'd have a big white tent, and people are like, "Oh, that painting! It just speaks to me." Like you see these dark and light characters, and you see the light holding the darkness, like like saving the darkness,
right,
and it, like
right.
speaks to them, and they're like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Well, it's a chapter in this book," and they're like, "I've got to have a book too." I
Yeah.
sold like
Yeah.
500 copies my first year,
Wow. Yeah.
just having artwork to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about that, but unfortunately, it's a little bit cost prohibitive because he's got to charge me the same amount to
Hmm.
do that as he would have a cover. But he is
Really?
so great that I'm able to, he will give me just the art without all of the text on it. So I take that into Canva, and I've got a banner that's taller than I am. It's got the character in the first book standing on there,
Oh, that's
and I
cool.
and I use that at events, and it
Mhm,
it draws people. I mean, you say books, like book covers sell books. I mean, that's
mhm.
in person events
Yes.
that is priceless to me. Having that, I mean,
That whole
it
the
brings a
whole
lot of people
mantra,
in.
don't judge a book by its cover, out
It's
the window.
true.
I will judge a
Yeah.
book by its cover.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I love the font choice for the Sphere Saga too. That pops to me. And
Yep.
I'm not like big on Karisa will tell you she's like very meticulous. Me, I'm like but that's the one thing I noticed about your books that pulled me in.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's another thing. I think that there is a lot that has to do with, and we had this with another person talking about there is a specific way, a canon for certain types of things. So fantasy has a certain look
Right.
you need to kind of stay in without, so you don't look like you're completely in the wrong shelf. But
Right.
at the same time, there are ways to make it unique.
Yep. Yep. Most definitely.
Yeah.
So what's next? What are you
If
writing now, Jay?
oh, yeah.
I've been taking a break since about October because my brain was fried when I finished book 5. So right now I'm actually outlining book 3 of the Arcana Chronicles, and I'm probably going to start writing it in March, early March, if not February. I'm itching to start it because I actually got on a roll with outlining it the other day. So I got the first 10 chapters outlined. I'm an outliner. I have to outline. It's some people are pantsers and discovery writers, whatever you want to call it.
I
I'd
just
say
fly.
it's.
Yeah.
I figured you were. I figured you
Yep.
were.
I'm
And
like, where's this story going?
there's
Oh my
nothing wrong
God, I
with
didn't
that.
expect that. Yeah.
There's
He's like,
nothing
that
wrong with
happened.
that.
I didn't even know.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I'm
He's
kind
just
of a hybrid. I have to outline so I know the shape of the story and I know where it's going and I know where it's going, but I don't outline down to the nth degree to where I know everything because
no.
there that
Yeah.
discovery process has to happen. Your characters take off on their own and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I guess we're going over here.
hmm Yeah, that's
That's
just
cool.
that's evolving the story, not
Yeah.
prancing like Jaime, just like tiptoeing through his story. And he's like, I don't know where this is going to go. I'm so excited to find out what happens in the end.
I know, that's what I love about writing, though. It's got me so excited right now. I might start Age of the Sigil in February.
There you go.
I just
You
like to
should.
do that to make her mad. Because it's 2 years in a row. I said my New Year's resolutions. I'm going to knock out
uh,
this book.
So, okay, with your characters, what character kind of like kind of lives with you, it haunts you, or like you always feel like that character's in your mind?
there's so many
You've got so many.
characters. Yeah, there's so many characters. I mean,
But you don't have one that's just like that one character that just sits with you like that. Whether they're a good person or a bad, they just kind of sit with you when you're in real life and you're thinking that fantasy character right now, this is what they would do.
well,
What would this character do?
this guy right here.
Hold it up
That
the street. I can't see
if
it
you
very
ask me
much.
my favorite,
Yeah, hold it up a little bit.
A little bit.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I mentioned the 3 wizard war criminals in this
Mhm.
series. He is one of them. He is my favorite character because he's a necromancer, and I love necromancers. I love dark wizards. I'm a weirdo. I can't help
No,
it.
it's just funny because you think
But
of
That's
saying I
not.
love necromancers. It's like, oh, but what they do.
but okay, but my necromancers and my take on it is a lot different, and that's why this character is. I shouldn't call one of my characters my favorite, but he is my favorite, and that's because his take on necromancy is a lot different than most people's take on necromancy. It's
Mhm.
not purely evil.
7% evil.
Eh, maybe not that much. Ghosts and that kind of thing. That's always fascinated me, and that's the necromancy path. Dungeons and Dragons. I always
Mhm.
gravitate toward necromancers and necromancy magic and that kind of thing. So
I always thought the word was cool.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Jay, I'm kind of curious, like your writing environment. When you're writing, is it like an office chair or you're in bed at night writing? Like, what is like the ideal setup for you?
I started out in my chair in the living room with the kids running around, and that's probably part of the reason that it didn't work the first time around. But once I actually buckled down and created a small office in my basement, and I have a dedicated desk, and I have my laptop, and I have the dedicated chair, and I've got bookshelf with my books around me, that I have to have that.
Yeah, you
So
found
that
your perfect aura.
that's part of the process.
Hmm. Oh,
If
environment is absolutely.
yeah, I sit down in front of the computer and I know it's time to work, and then that's part of getting into that. Hopefully, getting into that flow state of the words are going to start flowing, and I'm actually going to my brain's going to kick into that gear.
Nice, nice. So, if you could take if you could take yourself back in time, maybe research for your book or something in a time frame when fantasy may have felt a little bit more realistic, what time period would that have been?
Or forward in time. I mean,
Yeah. Well, considering I was a history major in college and I focused on the medieval era, probably the medieval era would be it. I mean, it's
Okay. No, I mean that's fine. I
yeah.
mean, and what when you would go, what would you want to learn about that? I mean, as far as what would you want to bring back from that era that maybe you don't feel like you know, especially being a history major, something you would like to find out.
I don't know.
the
That's a tough
lost,
one.
the lost book of necromancy.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It's in a cave up on a mountain. I'm gonna roll a
Exactly.
dice on this one.
Yep. Yep.
Literal Dead Sea Scrolls. All right.
Yeah.
If you could write in a different genre other than fantasy, what would it be?
I don't know that I could, because everything I write has magic in it.
Mm-hmm.
So that and I'm not a romance writer. I don't do romance. I don't do fantasy romance. There's some romance in my books, but there's no spice at all. I don't do that because I am not a spice writer. I'm not a romancy writer. You know, it's
We're going to revisit this, and when he puts out a romance novel in 3 years, we'll be like, "You remember when you
no,
said?" But it does have
no,
magic in it, Jamie.
But still, you
no.
can use. But don't you think that you can use magic and not have to be in fantasy? Do you feel like magic only belongs in fantasy?
No, well, I mean, the second book in my Arcana Chronicles is actually historical fantasy. It's
Oh,
all about
cool.
It's World War II with magic in it.
Okay.
You
I
know,
mean,
No, that's
it's
cool.
yeah. I guess for me, I that's finding the right genre is always sometimes the challenge when you're overlapping them. Because I don't write
yeah,
fantasy. Mine has, different things like that. So I was just wondering if maybe there would be something more supernatural where you could use the magic part of it and not
right,
not
yeah,
necessarily so. This is more hypothetical. Literally, you don't have to do this. I'm
yep.
just saying.
If I had to pick one, horror. I've never written horror, but I I like horror. I like
Mhm,
it intrigues me. I don't have the chops for that. I don't, but I wouldn't mind exploring that. Historical fiction would be easy to transition into.
Yeah.
I really had fun writing Heart of Magic, which is the one that's World War II with magic.
mhm,
Because World War II was always a fascination for me growing up, and it was cool to go back and do more research on World War II on things that I already knew about and dive deeper into it for the book,
mhm.
a lot deeper and spend a lot more time than I probably should have. But it was fun, and it made in writing the book a lot more enjoyable for me. So
Yeah, don't think you spent more time on it. That's great. I mean, you're because you want to if you're getting in that time period, you want to be somewhat accurate because
yeah,
people will call you out on like that
oh
didn't
yeah,
exist there.
oh yeah,
So no, that's time well spent for sure.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, so you talked about your writing space and what you have, but do you have any kind of like a ritual or any kind of things that you have to do before you start writing? Any kind of like quirky habits or anything that you do?
Not really. Usually I try to come home from work and change clothes and then settle in front of the computer. And then the one thing I do that does help me with it, and I wouldn't say it's quirky, is I will go back and reread whatever I wrote the day before. And I've adopted that into my revision and editing process
Mm-hmm.
because it gets me back into the story. I won't allow myself to totally rewrite everything, but I'll just kind of do like a light editing and revision pass on whatever I wrote the day before, and that
That's a
gets me
good tip.
back. It gets me back into the story, and then I just pick it up from there, and then hopefully, you get locked into it, and your brain gets into the right gear, and you can let it go from there.
Dude, when if whether I'm reading fantasy or writing it, I mentioned this the other day about reading. You'll laugh, but you'll get it. I usually have a bowl that has some cheese squares and some jerky and some dried nuts. Just eating like, okay, we're in the forest, so we're parked for the night.
Yeah,
Da, 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 da.
it's immersion. Yeah,
Yes.
It's
I
like a
can see
method
that.
actor. Jamie's like a method reader.
I'm a
Yeah,
method eater.
there you go.
Eater.
I like that.
Well, you should start writing something in a Chinese novel so you can have more Chinese food.
Oh, that's true. Or I just go to Chillicothe by myself while you're down there in Florida and you'd be jealous.
Yeah. All right. Let's see
Oh,
here. Jamie, do you have any fun questions to ask your friend Jay?
I mean, we've had some good ones here. I'm looking, even thinking out loud. I love the fact that he pulled up the literary history. I'm like, okay, I'm digging it. Oh no, if you could swap lives with an author one day, I know you mentioned Sanderson, but if you could flip flop and be that author, who would it be?
Sanderson.
Okay, why?
I mean, come on. I mean, if you know anything about Brandon Sanderson, I mean, he plays Magic the Gathering. He can drop $10,000 on a Magic the Gathering card just because he wants that card. I mean, but besides that, I mean, he is Mr. Prolific. He writes constantly. He'll take a vacation, and his vacation is writing. But I can't do that because
I wonder if
it's
he's going
just
to be at MegaCon.
In Florida,
I
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Brandon,
He
what?
just Brandon
if he
Sanderson.
if
Hmm.
he is, you'll have to take a picture with him and send it to Jay. Like, guess what, buddy?
I mean, he has his own con now. I mean,
Wow.
yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was in December.
So where's that located?
Out in Utah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
insane. Ah,
Yep.
Oh,
so is
interesting.
he there,
I'm just looking
Karisa?
this guy up because I'm not. I don't read I don't read fantasy. Um,
She's missing out.
Oh yeah.
no,
Oh
no,
yeah.
no,
Yep.
no, 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 no. Hey, I don't read fantasy. However, comma, I would love to watch it, and we've had this
Yep.
discussion before. I don't read it because I don't mentally want to keep track of everybody that's in the book when I'm reading it because I don't. But when it comes to watching it, I can keep track of it because I visualize.
Right.
But
Right.
what drives me nuts is like the Wheel of Time being out in HBO. And I haven't read that, but like when I see it, I'm like, okay, I have to eventually read the book because I got to know, like, how close are they to what was in the book? Which I know we can't cover everything, but
Oh, that's that. Well, we can have that discussion.
What
I've got
discussion?
issues with I've
what
got issues with the TV series, but
I figure a true fan would. Like I know they did for Terry Brooks, they did the Shannara
mhm.
Chronicles. They
Yep.
as a show, it was cool, cute for kids. As
Right.
following the book, it was horrible.
Right.
Yeah, it just. So yes, way to ruin a good book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was telling Jay before you got on here. I'm watching this. It's kind of like a supernatural but fantasy style. The Warrior Nun. So it does a lot of like magic.
I watched the first season and it was really cool. I just
Yeah,
never picked it back up.
Yeah. I'll have to check that one out.
yeah. That one. I'm watching that one right now. It's pretty good. But I like the idea of it, and it was like, oh, this is a really cool take. So yeah, I like
I
to
mean,
watch stuff like that.
yeah, like the Magicians. Netflix did the Magicians,
Yeah.
and that it's actually one that I like the series, but the TV series better than I like the books.
Yeah,
I
no,
quit
I love
reading.
that
I've heard
I
series.
people
quit.
say that. I've heard
I
people
quit
say
reading the
that.
books. I finished the first book and then started watching the series. I was like, screw this. I don't. This is better than the book.
I
Yep.
really liked the Magician series when I first started watching it, but there was a season that at some point I was just like, I didn't quite like it, so I got just kind
Yeah.
of like put to the side. But I'm sure it got better because it was just maybe that
Right.
one season.
I loved it, but
Right.
what I hate, I watch. That's like how I get away from all my work. I will consume Netflix or Amazon shows, and then I'm like, you'd be like, "Man, you remember the Magicians?" I'm like, I do, but I don't. I don't remember anything about any
Right.
episode or
Right.
season. So,
Yeah.
When you're in the moment, you love it.
so Jay, how do people find you? Do we
Exactly
have
what
a
I was going to say.
website?
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Everything is on Amazon. And all my books are on Kindle Unlimited. But I do have a website. It's J S Willis, which is my entire name spelled out, JAYSWILLIS.net or .com. Either way, it should. I hope it redirects. It should. Um, but yeah, everything's on Amazon.
Great. What if they want to contact you? I mean, do you accept emails from
Yeah.
fans?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've got a
How,
newsletter, and my newsletter goes out every 2 weeks, and yeah, I get emails every once in a while, and I'll respond back and forth to email. That's not a problem.
cool.
Nice.
I'm on Facebook too. I don't really do a whole lot of other social media, but yeah, I've got a Facebook page and my website. That's the two main sources.
Same thing. Is it J S Willis for your author page on Facebook?
I think it's Atlas Law Author or Atlas Author. I'd have to actually look it up.
Well, that's all right. This is an organic thing, and we'll throw it in the notes
Yep.
so they can
Yep.
definitely find you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll definitely put that in there and find where you're at on Facebook. So, also, would you like to give a little tell of where you're going to be next for people listening, possibly, that they can come see you?
Yeah, actually, I'm scheduled to be at an event called GoboCon. It's actually in northern Kentucky, about 45 minutes to an hour from where we are. It's run by a store called Goblin Traders in Ironton, Ohio.
Yep.
I went there last year. It was fantastic. It was a very small little event, but lots of people, lots of good interactions. I'm gonna be there in March. I'm going to be in Newark, Ohio, at the Newark Book Festival. It's in May. I think it's like near the end of May. I'm hoping I'll be at the Columbus Book Festival up in Columbus, Ohio, in July. I've applied for it, but they've not actually accepted anybody yet, so that's in the application process. And then I will definitely be at GalaxyCon in Columbus at the convention center downtown in Columbus, Ohio in December. I think it's the first week of December. I did it this past December. It was phenomenal, and we immediately signed up to do it again.
Yeah, I've seen some posts from you on it, and see if Karisa lived here, I'd probably be doing that too because I'm too all over the place to. She had to reel me in, like, "Come on, we're going to this book signing." So, but I love it. I love
I
that
was
you're
trying to get
all.
him to go to Orlando with me.
Yep, I know. It's like she's like, "I can't believe you're going to do it." Like it's in the first week of February, right?
The second weekend, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
MegaCon.
it's too close for me.
Man,
I'll get it.
they've got so many people going to be there. I'm so excited. I
Yeah.
can't decide if I want to go see all four characters from the CW that played Superman,
Oh, that
or
would be cool.
or go get my picture taken with four of the characters from Twilight. I don't know. Just so confused.
Mm, yeah.
I
Hey,
I am going to a con in March. I hate to tell you that, Carissa, but it's in Lexington. Sean's man. It's in Lexington. I got to drive there.
Mm-hmm.
I got to work with like a
Mm-hmm.
character. I don't know if it's SpongeBob, and there's like 5 or 6 voice actors I have to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sure.
cool.
yep,
Sure. Yeah, we'll
yep.
go with that one. Lies. You sell me your book of lies.
I was starting Age of Sigil in the morning. All
Yeah,
right, there's
excellent.
another one.
Okay, there you go. That's page 3. All right. So thank you, Jay, for coming
Well,
on.
thank
Thank
you.
you
I
for
appreciate it.
being a part of this. And thank you for sharing part of, your journey and telling us where you're going to be. Hopefully people are listening and people will show up for that. That'd be really awesome if you can get some good book sales and get some more followers for that. That's what we hope for most authors, and that's what we hope for anybody that comes on here, is we can kind of help them, if at all possible, reach out there to the ether and share
Yep.
your story.
Definitely appreciate it. It's always good to talk to other authors too.
Yes. Well,
Absolutely.
and because we all have this journey, and just to let you know, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
alone either.
Exactly.
Yes. But if you'd like to listen and find out more episodes that we have, you can go to www.alwaysrightpodcast.com. Click on those little icons that we have there. You can follow us on all of our socials, although we only post on 2. And you can also go to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music and listen to our episodes weekly when they come out on Thursdays. And if you have questions, or if you'd like to get a hold of Jay and you're having challenges and you want us to give you a little push through with his email, you can reach us at alwayswritepodcast@gmail.com. You over there mocking me. You really look like a puppet when you were doing that. All right. So in the show notes, we'll have ways that you can get a hold of and find Jay, and you can go and get his book on Amazon. And I highly suggest his covers are amazing. Like I
Yep.
said, don't read fantasy, but from what I'm understanding, these are pretty amazing. And you'll probably enjoy these stories and learn all kinds of things about this cool necromancer.
Yep. Most definitely.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. And as always, I'm author Karisa DeLay.
And I'm author Jaime Vendera, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Until then, always right.